All right. Welcome, everybody, to the second installment of our webinar series. If you missed the first one, we went over the turn numbers, the data we saw from this year's turn, some very interesting insights in there. Highly recommend it if you didn't see it. Let us know. We'll get that over to you. My name is Corey James, VP of Customer Success here at EZOS. Speaking right after me will be Lincoln Ogata, COO. Most of you know all of us anyway. So after that initial review of the past turn, we kind of got together and said, okay, what do we need to, after looking at all these turns, what do we think is most important for the audience to know, the customers to know, in regards to the upcoming turn? And so, as we always do, we looked at our numbers, and one thing that sticks out to us year over year is that while we love our GMs, we know that in the end, the buck stops with the regionals and the portfolio leaders. So that's why we thought this to be most important is let's reach out to our team members that are running multiple turns, and let's provide some insights into what we see as important and how our software can help with that. So first and foremost, when we look at these things, there's, I guess, as usual, there's kind of two different aspects of challenges that regionals face, portfolios leaders face for turn, and it basically boils down to pre-turn and during turn. So I'm going to go over some of the pre-turn things. As you'll see here, one of the most important things that a regional can have is cohesive turn planning, and that is across their portfolio. We're going to go over the importance of that. And of course, when we say turn planning, that doesn't necessarily mean, hey, the vendors are here, let's plan on what we're doing that day. That's stuff that you guys may be doing right now for the upcoming turn. And some things that help with that, are laying out our deadlines and following them with our teams, making sure that things not just vendor related, but did we order key packets? Did we order a roll-off dumpsters, things like that? All of that has to be done well prior to turn, and so laying those out clear is important. Going over our turn budgeting obviously is vital, and that kind of goes along with the fourth slide I'll be going over, which is vendor selection. Those things kind of go hand in hand. We have a few tools that are real helpful for checking those different costs, seeing what pricing works out for you all. And then after that, I'm going to kick it over to Lincoln. He's going to go over some of the aspects during turn that from a portfolio level you're able to look down on and watch in real time and see some of our focus on the information we're providing to you and the reason that it is structured that way. For instance, we want you to see the turns that are struggling, not necessarily the turns that are doing great, because we want you to know who you need to reach out to immediately. So that goes along with actual turn progression, ensuring vendor performance, and then, of course, monitoring those same budgets that we set, monitoring in real time to make sure that we didn't do all this hard work to then blow out our budget with things like change orders. So first thing we're going to talk to is that cohesive turn planning. And, of course, from a portfolio standpoint, it is vital for multiple reasons. The first part being initially creating your schedule with each team member, and that kind of puts you in the know of how their site is going to operate. The vast majority of turns, yes, are trash out, maintenance, paint clean, carpet clean, sparkle, all that good stuff. But knowing more important things like transfer dates and transfer planning, as well as you all know the time frame that's necessary. We want to make sure that all of our vendors are there, but not for the whole turn. We love them, but we'd like them to get out of there 3 or 4 days before move-in, so we've got time for sparkles and key packets and things like that. And then the other thing is making sure that we have all of our units scheduled. There have been instances where some units are down, or knowing that maybe not all the units are going to be scheduled because we did some over the summer. So, being a little bit more in the know on each turn. Yes, you may go site to site and kind of go through those things, but as you also know, things change in real time, and being able to have a general idea of each site's turn, why it's structured how it is, will allow you to A, make sure that they're getting everything done, but B, as you get into that tracking point, making sure that things are getting done at the pace that they should. And that kind of goes into the next thing is tracking some of these turns along with your scheduling. You're going to get different numbers from different sites, kind of based on their structure, based on their vendors. And you need to know what those numbers mean, not just see them. For instance, you may have one site that's short on maintenance, and so those maintenance work orders might be behind a little bit, and that, hey, they're cranking away at it, they're doing the best they can. Maybe we send some ops team members to help them. Conversely, you may look on here and see, one site is 50 work orders behind. You get in there, do a little digging, and realize, hey, this is my property that has carpeting in the common areas. Well, we're waiting to do all that. When the carpet cleaners get there, carpet cleaners are the ones that can knock out 50 to 60 units a day. I'm not too worried about them being behind. So not just looking at these numbers, but being able to discern from them what's actually happening on site is important, and only known if you're actually in that scheduling process and planning everything across the board to track success. Reason that we do all of this, obviously, A, is successful turns, but B, worst case scenario issues. And that, I think we said on our turn meeting this past month that we saw more GMs leave prior to turn or during turn than have ever left, over double from the year previous. And, because you have scheduled with that GM prior to them leaving, you've worked with the vendors, the on-site team knows how to do their inspections, how to follow behind the vendors. It's not as catastrophic as it used to be anymore if a GM up and leaves, because the turn is going to continue. The vendors know their assignments. They don't even have to come into the office. They show up. The on-site staff team can read their app and know what units they have to walk behind the vendors in, what's ready. But all of this is important, and the reason that we push the importance of it is because, for instance, the very first, probably the second year that we really started honing down on regional level, we actually found a site where the GM had left that the regional didn't even know yet. Our numbers actually told us something weird is going on here. We reached out to the regional. The regional said, I just talked to them. They did all their inspections. They're good to go. I, in turn, said they're 40% done on their inspections, and of those 40, it looks like they only walked 2 or 3 units. She reached back out. GM had quiet quit. I think that's what it's called nowadays, but then actually walked out. So the numbers can actually tell us if that's going to happen sometimes. And because this regional, who was awesome, had set up their turn, had worked with the AGM and all that, yes, they ended up going out to help that property, but they didn't have to freak out and sprint there. Everybody knew what was going on. The vendors were already starting. She could monitor the progress, make sure nobody's falling behind because of this. So having a cohesive turn plan for all of your sites hopefully will lead to success, but most importantly should not lead to failure. We know what's going on everywhere because we were a part of it. So a few of those things that we like to have built tool-wise to help you regionals with this. The first thing is schedule cohesiveness. And so portfolio managers like yourselves, regionals, yes, your vendor, you're going to work with your GM on scheduling their turn, making sure their transfer ends and all of that is set. But with our system, you can actually create their turn and schedule out their vendors all in one spot. And that's under the workspaces tab in Easy Folio. If you look on the picture over on the right, you'll see most recent turn created. There's a plus sign there. You'll actually be able to see all of your turn boards, all of your sites. Click the plus sign on one site. Our turn scheduler page comes up where you just put in the name of the turn, the dates, and you can sync it right there. And it'll automatically build their turn board for them. And then you can actually go from that window to the auto scheduler and schedule them all out. And so, if that's how you operate, that's how we saw huge numbers with our auto scheduler. Very easy for you all to do. You also are able to set, of course, the path the vendors take, which again is important because we need to know the progress of the vendors, know who's behind, know why they might be behind, and allow you to track, again, more accurately how things are going. So we love our portfolio view because it's keeping you from having to go site by site. It's keeping those of you that use Excel from probably 9, 10, 12 clicks to get turn to turn. You can go to one site and see that all the schedules have been built, see that everything is put together and everything's moving the right way. Another thing that we talked about earlier that I think is vital is our deadline and layout, our deadline layout and completion, because you can do this again at a portfolio level. So you can take all of your pre-turn tasks as far back as you want. You can start them now, start them in December, however. And when you put them, you go to just one of your sites, lay out the deadline, put a description in there, and select all of your sites, and everybody gets that deadline. And what's nice about that too is that at any point, once you get all of these deadlines on here, at any point, if you want to check completion of these, just click on the deadline you want to look at. And it's going to give you not only the site that you're on, but it's also going to give you all of the different sites, and you'll see that picture on the right, and whether they were completed or not. And then you can take it a step further. Your GMs are getting in there and clicking complete. You can have them upload some form of proof of completion. So we have some companies that, yes, you schedule the roll-off dumpster, upload a picture of your invoice. I want to see it. I want to see the dates. So you can kind of hone down as much as you want on these. But the ability to see these across turn is going to help, trust but verify. I know that I'm old enough to remember, and maybe ACC still uses that, but back in my day when I was there, it was all trust but verify. I trust that you're going to, approve the roll-off dumpster contract. I'm going to verify that you did it, to where one turn comes, if for some reason you're not there, I know that those are still showing up. I know that everything's still getting done. So this tool, again, is vital, and it's, again, something that you can do in one spot and not have to jump site by site by site, not have to do a bunch of different calls and say, hey, did you do this? We can see it, we can verify it. Along with all of the scheduling, obviously, we've got to do the budgeting. And we have a couple different places where we can really help your budgets. The first thing is going to be, we have numerous companies where we have actually set up dummy vendors, a dummy paint, dummy clean, dummy carpet clean. And the sites will go through, schedule their turn, schedule everything to the full version of that turn. So schedule your full paint, your full clean. And then you can actually, take your 3 quotes. Hopefully you've got 3 quotes from each vendor, pop it into the paint vendor, go into the page and look at the specifics of how much is the paint actually going to cost me. Vendor A is this, vendor B is this, C is this, and you can use those numbers to determine your vendor and your backup vendor, because you know that A, that is the most accurate version this is going to give us because it's all the paints that we have scheduled. B, the other thought is, if you are somebody that's reporting to an ownership group, if you schedule a full service and then later on back that service down to maybe a touch clean, you're going to be able to show savings. And that is awesome when you can go to your ownership group and say, hey, this was our initial cost of turn. We actually ended up saving $10,000 by being more on-site, being more specific in our services, and being able to save some money by touch painting and touch cleaning. So we, again, as you see here, a one-stop shop for all of your budgeting. So you're able to go site by site, look at all the different turns, look at the forecasted budgets versus the actual budgets, and not just on the overall turn, but also by service, as you'll see down at the bottom. Get with your teams, and if there's anything that sticks out, I see a negative variance on paint, I need to call and say, hey, this variance isn't too bad. Let's make sure we pop some touch paints in there. But again, the buck stops, and I'll say this, Lincoln will say this, the buck stops actually with the regionals. So if there's a turn that goes wrong or a budget that gets blown out, sure, we're going to talk to the GM, but upper management likely isn't calling the GM, they're calling you. So you need to be aware of everything that's going on, particularly with the money, because at the end of the day, the money is what they're going to have the most questions about. And again, you'll see here, we've got all of this is downloadable if you want to pull these into Excel, but we give you all the different costs by site, and then within each site, break it down by service, so you can get as into those numbers as you'd like. Talking sites, the other thing pre-turn that is very important, obviously, is your vendor selection. And we have our national vendor list, which we think is super helpful in terms of getting those multiple quotes. So you may have your vendor, you like what they do, that's great. We always say that we're not here to tell you who to use your turn or how to do your turn. We're just here to help you find some others and to plan your turn in our system. So one of those features we do have, again, is the national vendor list. You'll see on the right we have filtering. So if you are looking for a particular site or a particular service within a particular state, you can filter by that. It's going to go through our 7,000 vendors that we have in here now. Give you the ones that are in there, show you how many work orders, and then also show you their whether they're easy turn trained. You'll see the badges on the left. We have specific vendors that we partner with, and we're willing to do it with any vendors out there, where we actually go through and do in-depth training with their sites. And these are the vendors that we see the most success with. And we actually do show numbers as well of the completion numbers of work orders done by the vendor in the system. And where that's important is the vendors completing the work orders is vital, because it's going to save your team from having to sit at their computer and move those through. That gets very monotonous. That takes too much time. Our goal with our system entirely is to keep your GMs off of their computer as much as possible so they can be out on site. So having vendors that actually use the system is super important. And as you'll see here, there are numbers that we track that to make sure that our vendors are doing well. The other thing that we track, and Lincoln will go into it a little bit more, is our go backs of our vendors, because at the end of the day, when turn's over, yes, it went well. What's the strain it put on my team there? I can go back and look at the go backs and say, hey, I know your painter finished, but they had 50 go backs and you guys are exhausted. Let's keep that in mind for next year. As to when we're looking at our vendors, we can actually show these numbers to the painter and say, hey, this has got to get better, or I got to bring in somebody else. So, and finally, as I mentioned, great place for backup vendors, to where if you are able to look at these numbers, see that your painter's falling behind. On our auto scheduler, we have a very easy feature: pop in a second vendor, hit create. It's going to take the remaining work orders for that service, shuffle them up, and split them between the two vendors. So it's very easy to add in your backup painter or a second painter, same with clean, obviously. Through our system, just a couple clicks, we reshuffle the work orders for you, take the burden off the folks that are maybe falling behind, and split that work up and make sure everybody finishes on time. So that's all I have when it comes to pre-turn. Lincoln has a few points on during turn, things that you can look at, things that are helpful, and then at that point we'll take some questions at the end. So I'm going to
All right, let's see here. All right, well, yeah, excited to kind of go into my portion. I appreciate Corey, you laying out the pre-turn. In reality, the more we thought about this, I'm really going to have the during turn and then kind of almost the post-turn on top of that. So as Corey did mention at the end, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them into the chat. If you're new to Riverside, which we are as well, utilizing this, but there is a chat in the bottom right, at least on my screen. So y'all can feel free to put any questions in there that you might have, and we will happily go through and answer those at the end. So again, I'm going to be focusing on this portion of it during the turn, and we're going to kind of kick that off with the move out inspection, right? So just to kind of show you a couple tools that your site will have, which I'm going to highlight, because again, if you all know this, then you know what they're doing. If you have a better idea what they're doing, then they can't make excuses to you about other things. So this left screen here, this is on the app doing the actual move out. It's a new feature that we added, which should be really, really beneficial, and it shows damage target dollar amounts here. So if you're a site and you have that, and you have a target in mind to keep mind of, and of course these are all specific to the move out, then you're able to go through and set it. The same way you can set your budget overall, you are able to set it. And as you're actually putting in damages, you can see this bar move across. Even if it's 3 teams doing move out inspections, you can see this bar moving across to see where you're at. And so just gives you a really, really good idea of where you're at on damages. We have other places that show it as well, but just so that you all know, and of course, if you're attached to the site, you can literally hop on your phone and see this as well. It's also available on the desktop, but they can see as their move out inspection is going exactly where they're at with their damage targets. So again, a way for you all to then get into the system and see what's going on with damages. You're able to come in here and see the different items that they have. You can see if there's multiple residents. If you've never seen it, we have plenty of training for it. You can ask Lori about it. But in general, what happens is, of course, they're collected at move out inspection and they're shuffled over to the desktop to be approved to do all the final cleanup. These are the correct residents. As you all know, it'll automatically split up by 2, by 3, the charges, and it'll bring over the pictures, of course, from the desk or from the mobile. And then you go through here, and you can do it in bulk, but the idea is to go through line by line to ensure all of it's correct. So you all, when you hop in here, can come in and see the total. This example in the top right here is, try to click on it. Progress to the next screen. This 141 shows you your totals, but you can actually separate it by building or whatnot. That doesn't mean those have all been synced. You can sort that at the end and say, just show me how many they synced. All right, but this is how many they have pending at this time for this example. So again, from a regional standpoint, why am I seeing this? You all can go in there and monitor to see what's going on. When you're going in and you're on your desktop, you can easily go site by site and see what's going on with collections in real time. Let's say it was a noon move out, but people move out early. They might have 50 units done by the time noon really hits, and you can start checking around that time and then check it again at 3-4 o'clock. Everything's time stamped. You can see when everything happens in the system, and you can really monitor those damages. So again, it allows you to create them, collect them together on the desktop, verify, and then sync them on over to Entrada for FMO. So just a really easy way to monitor, and we keep adding tools because we really want to obviously empower them to know where they're at. We see cases where they'll go through, and probably due to the ease of us collecting, sometimes we get some larger numbers for damages, which is a pro and a con depending on how you look at it. We made it easy enough, so we solve that. If people put in a bunch, and sometimes they're going back through and they're saying, okay, this one's a little iffy, which is again why we have that screen that allows you to go through and say whether or not it's a good charge or not. And also, just so you all know, again, this is more of the per site basis, but for those that are doing the move-in inspections, the whole idea is that if you did a move-in inspection, before you go through and verify that damage charge, you're able to see an icon, which would mean that they filled out the move-in inspection. You can open it up and see if there's any conflicting data. If they say, my return error register looked like it got punched, and they take a picture of it at move-in, and you're charging them for that register, for that return error register, and you look at it's the exact same damage on there, then obviously you can make a selection there to say that that was a pre-marked item for them. So it can kind of help in that realm. The next portion I have is this actual turn progression by site. So again, our focus here is we're in turn. Maybe you're a region, in a perfect world, I guess depending on how busy they are, you might have a very easy July 31st through August 20th, right? 21st move in maybe. You've got these same days that all your teams are working. What is a way I can monitor, right? So I've been in this position myself over multiple sites. I used to call them almost daily, kind of a check-in, check-out, make sure they're there. As Corey gave the example before, some people have left before without the companies even knowing, but we've seen it go stagnant on our end. But, they're there, they're in good spirits, right? And they have what they need to succeed, and they have a plan in case something's going on. So we do a lot of tools to help you all on a daily basis. So one of these tools is a daily report. Maybe it'll even be annoying, but annoying in a good way. But if you're in charge of 5 sites at night, 8, 9 o'clock Eastern time, I can't memorize it right now, it's one of those, you're going to get 5 of them, 5 sites you're in charge of, a ding, 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 and you're going to have 5 emails pop up. And what that email does is it shows what got complete on the day versus what the expectation of completion was for that day. It'll show if you're behind, and then we use some pretty basic AI to just go through and say, they missed the number, one vendor did nothing, and then we will assess a score and a grade for how that day went, and we're going to categorize it as low concern, medium concern, or high concern. And we do put it in the title of the email, so you don't have to open up every single one, but if you visually look through it, and you're usually pretty optimistic about your team, you'll see those 5 emails come in, and it might say low, low, medium, medium, high. And you're like, okay, I'm going to open up this high one for sure, obviously. And when you get into there, it's going to have this kind of details like on the left here, which again shows the total that they got done, the amount they got done that day. Again, it's going to do an evaluation on its own to categorize the health score of that turn so far. And it gives you all the nitty gritty numbers all the way down to how many each vendor did. I didn't even get a whole picture of it, but it shows every single vendor and what they got done on a given day. So again, when it comes to daily reports, yes, you can get in our system and we can encourage you to do that, sure. But I know that as regionals, probably similar to me at times, we've got quite a few emails that can get stacked up, but we're kind of living through our emails a lot of times, especially during times like that, and we don't have time to open everything. So again, we thought to ourselves, how can we service regionals? And boom, we put it in the title. So literally as those hit next morning or that night, you just look on there and it will say what the concern level is, and just know that your site's getting these as well, right? So by the time you reach out and say, hey, I just looked through your report for yesterday. You all got done with 2 out of the 27 you're supposed to get done. What's the deal with that, right? Again, as someone who used to be over multiple sites, I would call. Sometimes they blatantly lie to my face. It happens, right? And sometimes they don't even know that they're that far behind. But our system will show you that, right? So we're able to be in there and actually know if they are on pace or not on pace. So this is, again, something that we do. And yes, it's almost always in our site as well, but just another way to reach through the site and to be able to send you an email and say, here's the daily report. It's high concern. Click in. We'll tell you why it's high concern. And we'll show you the data to back it. Now, could it be that it makes sense to you because you knew what happened that day? That's fine. We just give you a basic idea of completion, behind units, how much is snowballing. As you all know in our system, if I'm scheduled for 30 each day and I get done with 15 day one, I've got 45 for the next day I got to catch up. Or as Corey mentioned, you can add other vendors and spread it out. If you already have 2 or so vendors, you can easily go in the system and spread those out to the other sites in real time. And when they open their phone back up again on the app, they're going to see the new list that they have to kind of spread that out. Not many people turn down money, so they don't mind it at all. So again, this is the term progression by site. It's a great thing to pull up maybe even as you call them or as you check in on them to be able to see what they did. They know you get these as well, but still it's really nice to have this sheet while you're checking in on them. And it really helps kind of prevent, I'm 5 days into turn, I've snowballed, I've got to do 95 tomorrow when my normal rate was 30 a day. It should allow you all to be ahead of that when you get reached out to say, how's your region doing? You can literally go through and read those reports to see how they're doing. And obviously they encompass not only that day they're on, but it does give an overall concern still. Meaning if I was really behind on day 1 and I just did my original minimum for day 2, but I still have that remaining ones, it'll still show a higher or medium concern because yes, even though we had a good day yesterday, we still have not made up from day 1. So it's a great way to go through that and be able to give your updates. And then obviously too, you can have people higher in your chain on here and they're going to see all of them. So this is to keep everyone on the same page. Corey mentioned the cohesiveness. When I started in student housing, and I guess it was 2009, 2008, it was kind of the wild, wild west. You just kind of handled your site the way you did it. If you were successful, people didn't ask too many questions. They'd be there if you weren't. But just because they got through it didn't mean they necessarily crushed it or did a great job of it just to survive and have people move in, right? They could all move in and secretly hate it and not tell anybody because it was so rough. But this really allows you to monitor what they've run into. And also it's really easy to say, I've got 5 sites. One site had no issue and they're the second largest. Maybe I'll have them share some things that they do well, right? Some group training. We talk about that with vendors a lot too. If you've got 2 cleaners, and I'll get into it here in a bit, and one was just so much higher successful, eventually you think they'd get it, right? I tell people that there's pet peeves that we have as GMs to say, I love checking, my team hears me say it all the time, but mine personally was fan blades and microwave plates. Right? Couldn't stand it when they get missed really easily. I hate fan blades because even if the room's clean and then you go wipe those, now all this static blue mattresses from University Furnishing or whoever it is. All of those things now are sucking in all of that dirt. Now your room's like dirty again. So it can be very, very frustrating. But anyways, you can go through and see why there's go backs in the system and really track that system. And again, be able to stay on top of it. So again, just like a GM is able to see completion throughout the day, you all can see that as well, but that's more so their responsibility. Even if you are checking once a day, you can see maybe the GM recovered that day. Maybe they started off slow and recovered, but by the time that last report runs, it's just measuring over the day, right? So it's just a great little sneak peek into the site each day. So that's the while you're doing progression of it. So now let's say, right, and I'll get into this and I'll speak carefully here. There's times that I've had my GMs where it really was their vendor and maybe, they were kind of pushed to use that vendor. Maybe it's a national vendor that they had to use, or maybe no one got back to them with bids, or maybe due to ownership, they had to take the lowest bid. And it was someone that we're realizing now why it's the lowest bid. We can see those things, right? So as far as being able to delineate between, is it my site, which again our system will show, is your site behind because you have so many units to go walk, which would be a site issue, because if they're not walking the units, then they can't give the go backs and they can't close out items. So we've got a bunch of stuff started and nothing really signed off or really done. So it might be, man, I feel like they've been in every unit, but if you're not signing off or having some way to approve each of the different steps that go through, then it's still not as valuable, right? As knowing, okay, we've actually approved, boom, all of paint is done. We're done. Instead of all paint is done, but I haven't seen half of it, right? So we really allow you to go in there and say, is it the vendors that are behind, or is it the site that's behind on following them up? So we allow you to see the vendor performance in real time on how many have been completed. And of course, with those daily reports, it'll help paint a good picture for you as well. But as Corey said, I was going to hit on, we do keep analytics for these go backs. And I've already talked about this quite a bit, but it really is helpful. We joke and say, fire vendors and point at us if you want to. Say, hey, look, I pulled EZOS and I have 2 painters at this site, and one of them had, in this case, I guess an 8.9 go back rate, and my other vendor had a 41% go back rate. You all understand it. That high go back rate is your team waiting for elevators, busting out stairs, going through breezeways every time to go travel to look at a unit that they were told was good and it's not. And now they got to go back again and back again and back again. So it's killed time. So again, I always say, if you want to point to our analytics and say, hey, we just can't do this, or maybe in a case there's 3, 2 of them around 10% and you're at 30%, you guys are not getting it as turn goes on. You don't get it. We can't work with that. That's killing us, killing our team. We're already undermanned. We can't keep walking units over and over and over again. So, and of course, you all know what that turns into when it comes to cleaning. Then all of a sudden, your sparkle clean, you're wearing your forearms out, cleaning out toilets when it's supposed to be a sparkle. You should be hitting shineware and making the room smell nice and sweeping your way out the door a little bit here and there, but it shouldn't be that. So, being able to really see the vendor performance site by site, and again, be able to measure and know what's going on. And before someone can say, hey, my vendors were terrible, you can be like, I actually know that to be true. I saw them. They were really behind. We got to stay on them. We got to spread it around. As Corey mentioned earlier, again, about activating backup vendors. This is a great way to do it. You never want to go too many days where they say, we're going to catch up. I've been bit by that before. A painter said, we're going to catch up. We're going to stay late and catch up. They never caught up. It pushed everything back. That was me as an early GM, did not pull the trigger on them soon enough, and I had to end up bringing in somebody that we paid a lot of money for to finish up the last little bit because I believed them that they were going to catch up. So this at least allows you to see what they're averaging and how they're doing, in the system. So that is the vendor performance, and really being able to see, again, is it my site? Is it vendors? And, you won't forget a name if they've wronged you. So next year, we're not bringing back fill in the blank. We're not going through it again. So, really important to have these vendor performances here. So the next one I have here is monitoring budgets in real time. This looks familiar. It's very similar to what Corey showed earlier, but now it's a different mindset. We're able to go in here and see, again, as you can see, the amount of work that's done in the units and being completed out there. You're able to go through and monitor how much is being invoiced in that time, or you can monitor if that forecasted changes. So just a real quick education on our forecast. And we have other places that show change orders. We mentioned it here as well. But even if I have everything scheduled out, perfect world, I scheduled in May, right? I had a handful of renewals. It moved a few dollars. I do move out inspection, which I'm going to reiterate, even though it's a GM thing, you all can still monitor it. When you talk about a site saving money, if you're a site that does touch clean, touch paint, full paint, we have it so easy on the app that when you do that move out inspection and you're doing damages and you walk into a room that you had marked as a full paint and maybe you remembered it wrong or documented it wrong, it looks like it's in really good shape. You can go there and do a drop down menu and change from a full paint to a partial paint, save $250 on that. You do that, 10 times, obviously. Yeah, it's $2,000. You do another 10 times, it's thousands of dollars. And we want to make it easy to save money like that, to go in there and actually, again, downgrade it. If not, they're not going to bring it up. If I'm a painter and I see I'm getting paid for a full paint in a room and I walk in and say, man, this room's actually pretty great. Caveat, maybe there's a small handful with that level of integrity. But usually it's not, people in charge making those calls anyways. It's someone that has a paint bucket and their job is to paint, right? So you can make a nice adjustment. We've seen that be used a lot heavier this year and do a lot of cost savings because some people, I wouldn't say lazy, but they'll just say, I think these are all going to be full paints. They all look rough. Let's just go ahead and full paint all of them. Not the case. If you have a touch paint with a different price point, you can downgrade those literally on move out day, which means it's the last time you're going to see it before a vendor goes in, and you can shave thousands off. All that to say, if you come in here and you know your totals for all of your vendors and you watch during turn and they are maybe upgrading from touches to fulls or they're adding change orders, even if you're like, oh, I feel good about this site, we're going to be under 110,000. I feel good about it. And then as you check it 3 days into it, it's all of a sudden 125,000 because there's been $15,000 worth of change orders. You need to say, whoa. Let's make sure these change orders are necessary. Why weren't these caught before? You can ask all those questions, right? But this is a place you can in real time, again, during turn, go through. And while the daily ones are more so focused around work that's not being done, we have this version as well here to go in there and see why is this number changing so much? How did all these change orders come in? This is more change orders than we've ever had. Whatever it might be, you can come in the system and monitor that. So that is monitoring your budget. So to recap again, Corey did all setup. I'm doing during the turn, and then I will say post turn, which I've kind of snuck in a few post turns about keeping vendors or not. But again, post turn, to go back and evaluate, you can go through and see how many items were completed each day, and you can kind of see the chart of, did we start off hot and get cold? Was it fatigue? What was it? But I used to joke and say we had our dry erase boards that I always say we printed off from Kinko's, a giant laminated room thing, and we'd mark it through with our Expo markers and our different color codes that we had. And then when turn was done, we'd spray it with our spray, wipe everything off, roll it up, and put it in the corner of my closet until next year. The problem with that is there's no remaining data. Even if you were more advanced than that and had an Excel sheet, chances are you're not going to go back and look at it because it's somewhere else and you've done 1,000 spreadsheets since then. In our system, you can go back to your year before, read the evaluation of it because we do a post-turn evaluation. When you archive it, it will actually evaluate your whole turn and tell you how it went and tell you where the strengths were, who your strong vendors were, who your weak ones were. And it can give you a really nice picture as far as things that you should focus on. But again, the last portion is as a regional, if a GM's not caring to do it, you all can go through and monitor and look over their turn and the breakdowns and information that we have for them to go through and actually see, what do we need to learn from it? Because if you don't learn from it, the next year something will happen and you'll say, this is the same thing that killed us last year. We forgot about it. So we allow you to see and keep all your data from your previous turns so you can see what's going on with it. So that's that portion here. I'll give this in conclusion as we get ready here for any questions or comments, which again, you all can feel free to throw into the chat if you have one. But in conclusion, when a turn goes bad, upper management, they're right, not calling the GM. you might call the GM right when you get done hanging up with upper management. I've been that person. But when turn goes bad, you're probably getting the first call from ownership or whomever, right? So they're calling you. So this year, we're going to put a really big focus on making sure that the regionals understand the system. Because I will tell you all, in situations where the regionals don't know it and don't know how to monitor it as well, then the GMs seem to know that. That their regionals don't know it, and so if they take shortcuts or whatnot, you're not going to see that in there, or you're not monitoring it till the end. And again, you're like, man, they use this system and they still messed up, which is completely possible. You still have our system will hold it and help you monitor it, but if it's not being monitored by the GM or by anybody above it, then obviously they can do their own thing in there. We'll have a nice paper trail of where it went south and how early on it went south, but it's there. So, as it says here, being intimately involved in each of your turns is vital to their success and will help you thoroughly understand their failure. And again, it really helps show, was it vendors, was it site-based, and you can't always, just go through and get rid of people. So we say, let's pair together someone who had great success during and not, and find out, how we can spread that knowledge around within your own organization. So that's all I have for there, and we will open up for questions. And
there was a question that came in on the chat, and it was just giving examples of regionals when they had run turns remotely. And I'll show an example of it that's a little different, but the concept is the same. But realistically, with having your bed statuses, our system having your bed statuses from Entrada, knowing the path of your vendor's going to take paint clean, carpet clean, you can schedule that out really without any property input. I know that there's going to be, we told this guy we'd get him in sooner and things like that, one-offs, but for the most part, all of those are going to be pretty much the same. And so then at that point, your vendors have their list for each day. So you don't have to meet them in the morning and hand them that, that piece of paper and see how they do. So the vendors can go, so there's no necessarily a need for GM interaction at that point. When they're done walking, the staff will have the walk list on their phone so they can go out and do their thing and make sure that they either approve it or send it on a go back. So the thought of it is, once your turn is scheduled, there is a world where you don't even need to get on your computer again until after turn. Now, of course, you may get on there, look at invoicing and things like that, but our goal always was our GMs are most important out in the field, and our staffs are most important out in the field. And because of that, kind of a byproduct is people that are digital can schedule it, and the vendors go, and the only thing you need, whether it's a maintenance manager or a AGM or someone, you can schedule those things or have them walk behind vendors, and then you don't need, anybody as far as a GM in there. Now, of course, we love our GMs. We want them to be there. They have the final say of those rooms. But if worst case scenario, they leave, then, the turn can continue at a normal pace. Now, the example I'm going to show is a version of that, except it's actually move my window here. This is actually a remodel. So we have a customer that does all of their remodels of units and sites totally remote. And this is how they do it. So they schedule out each step. In this case, it's all flooring removals, as you'll see. But they schedule out each step. And because our vendors, when they go in there, can leave photos on the work orders, their vendors will leave the photos on the work orders. So if I'm doing this remotely and they say it's approved, or if the vendor says it's complete and they've left photos, I can click on here, look at the photos, and then either approve it or send them on a go back. But this company actually does all of this completely remote. So if something as in depth as there's 8 or 9 different services on here, if that can be done remotely, they don't even have anybody walking behind. They're just got to have their vendors taking photos. Now, obviously, there's more ins and outs, more nooks and crannies we need to check, but the ability to do remote work is in our system is something that we see more and more of every year. And I think, again, we don't want our GMs to not be there, but if we plan for the worst case scenario and it happens, we have a plan. And it's going to be, I can watch these vendors, I can watch the analytics, make sure we're not falling behind. Until I'm able to get there. If I need to go there, maybe I have a strong AGM and I'm like, you know what, I think you got it. I'm going to watch this more closely than my others to make sure you have it. But I think you can do this, and that's a great, if I'm an AGM, it's a little scary, but that's also a great ego boost to be like, they think I can do this, but you're still, you're still watching, you're still monitoring, you're still trusting but verifying, but you do have that capability. Are there any other questions?
Yeah. Yeah. If there's no other questions, we appreciate. Oh, we got one here. Enter budgets, the more portfolio wide as well as it's required. So Corey, I guess you could maybe talk to that, but essentially that's Dale. I'll read it out loud for everybody. Are we able to enter budgets more portfolio wide as well, or does that still require to drill down to each company's site to enter the budget figures? Kind of a mixture. You can actually, when you go through and create the initial ones, that is actually done now on the EasyFolio page, so you don't have to like switch through the drop downs, but you can go via your sites. And as you create each one, let's call it the shell of the turn. When you go through and create the shell of it, you can actually put in your budget for each one of them. Don't know if we have that for like the damage totals yet, but as far as the budget goes for the actual turns, you can now create the shell of all of those across all of your sites. I kind of answered there, Corey. Anything to add to that as well?
Yeah, and we do. So we do have the ability to track each service site by site. But I also don't think that is impossible, and I thank you again, because I think this could be a feature we could easily implement, which is filling in those. We can click on a site and see the paint estimated budget that's forecasted to be spent. There's no reason we can't put in a field there from a portfolio level if you do want to go, okay, well, let's put our paints in, cleans, carpet cleans, our budget for each site. I think that's something that we could easily do. So that'll be something we put on the notepad, and we can make sure that that if you're wanting to go that route, it's available for you.
And that's a good question. That's a good comment too, Corey, because as I was talking about, it's the overall budget, but last year we added the feature to allow you to go per service a forecasted amount, which then of course adds it up for your overall budget. But yes, the one I was talking about was the overall budget. But yes, it'd be nice to wouldn't be a hard fix to let you put in per service if that's how drilled down you're going to have it for each site. So it's a good question there, Dale. Anything else? Okay. Well, I would encourage you all just to know that, we want to empower the regionals. And again, we do want to caveat and say we know it's really, really busy for regionals during time, but we know that during turn, that's why we work to make these tools easier. We don't want you to have to go through and skim through every single one of the sites you're in charge of. So again, last year with this push of EasyFolio, if you've not had a chance to see that yet as a regional, this EasyFolio interface is for you. This is something to, again, not have to go into each individual one, see the totals you need to see who you need to be paying attention to. And so we have this built specifically to make it easier because, again, we know you are flying around. We know you're busy. We know you're on calls. This is something where we're just trying to make it as easy as possible for you to find out exactly where each one of your sites and vendors stand.
And that's going to end up going with our training this year is, yes, we're going to do our GM training, but our regionals are our primary focus because, if one GM struggles, that property struggles. If one regional struggles, 4 properties struggle. So that's somewhere where we're really going to focus. And, of course, if you guys, as we go through this, if you have any questions, want to set up trainings, anything like that, just let us know. We're happy to help.
Yeah, appreciate you all coming on. And we'll have